People write off Waterbury all the time. They hear the name, they picture something gritty, they picture something rough around the edges, and they scroll right past it. That's a massive mistake today. I'm going to give you 7 reasons why, if I were buying a home in Connecticut, Waterbury would be near the top of my list. Not because it's perfect, because it's not, but because it offers awesome value. In this market, it's genuinely hard to find anything like it in the state. Stick with me. This one's going to change what you think about Waterbury. Here's the thing about price with real estate in Connecticut. It is almost always tied to a trade-off. You want a house with character, a yard, something that feels like an actual home. You're going to pay for it. In most towns in the state, the conversation starts north of 400,000 and a lot more in some popular spots. You're often in the 5, 6, 700 range. Waterbury breaks that pattern in a way that not a lot of towns do. You can still find genuinely solid single-family homes here, actual houses with garages, backyards, the kind of thing you'll be proud to show your parents, at price points that would get you a 1-bedroom condo somewhere else in Connecticut. The gap is real. It's not a trick with the data. People who are shopping this market with an open mind are walking away genuinely surprised by what they find. Now, I want to be honest with you about something, because this is the part that people get wrong. When a market has pricing that seems low, the first instinct is to assume there's a catch. And sometimes there is. But the more I look at Waterbury, the more I think the gap between what things cost and what similar homes cost in other neighborhoods comes down to one thing entirely: perception lag. The city is further along in its evolution than the reputation has caught up to. And that historically is exactly why the city creates real opportunity for buyers. The people who understood that about Naugatuck 5 years ago are sitting on a ton of equity right now. The people who figured it out early in Derby and Ansonia look very smart. The question is whether Waterbury is in the same position today. And I think it is. I think the window's still open, but windows like this don't stay open forever. If you're thinking about Waterbury at all, shoot me a quick text with the price range you're thinking of, and I will send you actual homes that are currently available so you can see how far your money could go. Reason number 2, the location is quietly incredible. People think Waterbury is isolated. It's not. It's actually one of the better positioned cities in the state when you think about it. You're sitting roughly in the middle of the I-84 corridor. New Haven is less than a half an hour away. Hartford's about 40 minutes away. Danbury, Watertown, Naugatuck, all super close by. If you're someone who works remotely a few days a week, but occasionally need to get somewhere, Waterbury is a legitimate hub. You're not choosing a remote outpost. You're choosing a central point within reach of multiple directions. And if you commute to New York, I know that sounds like a stretch from Waterbury, but people do it all the time. Metro North access through nearby stations is real. It's not the most glamorous commute in the world, but for the price difference you're gaining by buying in Waterbury, it's a calculation a lot of people are making and feeling pretty good about. The geography itself is also nice. You're surrounded by hills. There's water. The Naugatuck River runs right through it. The driving routes through this part of Connecticut are genuinely scenic. People forget that because they're thinking about Waterbury, the city, in isolation rather than thinking about what it's like to actually live there day to day, move through the surrounding towns, and exist in this region. Location is one of those fundamentals that never really changes, and Waterbury's location is better than most people give it credit for. Reason number 3, the architecture alone is worth your attention. This one is one that surprises a lot of people, and honestly, it's one of my favorite things to talk about because it's so wildly underappreciated. Waterbury was once called the Brass City. It was a major manufacturing hub. They made clocks, Timex to be specific, buttons, brass goods, and it was all at the peak in the late 1800s, early 1900s. My dad worked there. My grandma worked there. It was genuinely prosperous. That prosperity left behind an architectural legacy that is extraordinary for a city this size. We're talking about grand civic buildings, ornate churches, turn of the century residential neighborhoods with homes that would stop you if you saw them on the street of any other town. Hillside, Grand Street, the East End. If you spend an afternoon actually walking these streets, your jaw will drop by what's there. Victorian era homes, original millwork, wide covered porches, solid bones, a character that takes hundreds of years to develop and cannot be replaced. You cannot build what's in those neighborhoods. You have to find it. And right now you can find it in Waterbury at prices that make sense. Now, some of those homes, they need work. That's honest. The maintenance gap that builds up over decades of economic struggle is real. And buyers need to go in with eyes wide open. For buyers who want to own something with actual soul rather than a builder grade box that looks like every other house on the street in a suburb, Waterbury delivers something that's genuinely rare. And I think it's a growing group of buyers specifically looking for that, and they're starting to figure out where it is. Look, if you're genuinely thinking about moving to the Waterbury area and you want somebody who knows the market, my team lives here. We have several agents that actually live in Waterbury. We are happy to point you in the right direction. We do this on a daily basis. We've helped over 5,000 people buy and sell real estate here in Connecticut. And I don't know if you've noticed, I'm passionate about it. I love real estate, and I would love to have you be one of our happy customers. Contact me below. All my contact details are there. Let's get right back to it. Reason number 4, a food culture scene that's actually growing. Here's what I want to be careful about because I don't want to oversell this. Waterbury is not Fairfield County. Heck, it's not even Litchfield County when it comes to food. It doesn't have Restaurant Row that's going to show up in travel magazines. If your baseline expectation is something like that, you're going to be disappointed. But it does have something that a lot of people overlook entirely. It's authentic culture, the kind that grows up organically over time in communities, people who've actually put roots down there. The immigrant communities that have built their lives in Waterbury over the last several decades have brought their food, their traditions, and a kind of street level energy that you genuinely cannot find in a more homogenized suburban market. There are spots in this city, real spots, not chains, not corporate, where the food is exceptional and the prices are great. There's Colombian, Puerto Rican, Italian, American, Portuguese. The Waterbury people have culinary depths that most people would never guess from the outside. And there is real cultural institutions here. The Palace Theater is a legitimate venue with a real calendar of events. The Mattatuck Museum has a surprisingly strong collection of regular rotating exhibits. There's farmers markets, community organizations that are actually working to build something. This isn't a city that's given up on itself. It's a city that's been working for less, working longer, and starting to see some of that work pay off. And being present for that moment, being early to the city in motion, it is genuinely exciting if you're wired that way. Reason number 5, the surrounding areas are your backyard. Here's something that doesn't get said enough. You're not just buying a house in Waterbury, you're buying access to the whole surrounding region, and a lot of people pay a significant premium to be nearby some of those towns. Litchfield County is right there. The lakes like Banham, the trails on White Memorial, the towns people drive hours to visit on the weekend, like Watertown, Thomaston, Morris, Litchfield. They're all within easy reach. The Naugatuck State Forest is essentially in your backyard. If you're in the right part of the city, there's fishing, hiking, mountain biking. Black Rock State Park is minutes away. You have genuine accessibility to outdoor space without paying the land premium that towns openly marketing themselves as outdoorsy charge for the same access. For people, this matters enormously. You don't have to choose between city convenience and outdoor access. You're in a position to have real proximity to both. You're in a price point that makes the whole picture feel sustainable long-term rather than a stretch you're hoping to grow into. And this is something I think gets genuinely undervalued in how people think about location. It's not about the commute. It's about the quality of life radius that's within 30 to 40 minutes of where you wake up every morning. By that measure, Waterbury's radius is surprisingly strong. Reason 6, where you land in the city matters, and smart buyers are figuring that out. This one I want to flag specifically because it's the piece most people miss. And honestly, it's the piece that separates buyers who do well in Waterbury from buyers who have a frustrating experience in Waterbury. Because here's the truth, not all of Waterbury is the same. Like any real city anywhere, where you land matters. There are sections of Waterbury I would personally buy in myself without hesitation. And there's other spots where we might need to do a little more due diligence. That nuance is everything, and it changes the day-to-day of experience for two people that live in Waterbury. It changes the resale story. It changes who your neighbors are and what the trajectory of your block looks like over the next 5 years. The buyers who are doing well in Waterbury right now are the ones who did their homework on this specific piece, and they're not just buying in Waterbury as a concept. They're buying in the right parts of Waterbury that fit their lifestyle, and they're intentional about it. I actually made a full video breaking down all of this and going over the 3 sections in the city I would actually buy in. I'll link it in the description and I'll put it in the end card. If you're serious about Waterbury at all, that video is the next thing you should watch. It's the missing piece of this whole conversation, and it answers the question everybody's always asking, which is, okay, Waterbury sounds good, but where specifically? Reason number 7, the momentum is shifting and you can still get ahead of it. This is the one that keeps me coming back to Waterbury as a conversation worth having, because everything else I've said, the price, the location, the architecture, the culture, all of that is true right now. But the last piece is about what's coming. And I think that's the most compelling argument of all. Markets move in cycles, and one of the most consistent patterns I've watched in my 20 years of real estate here is that towns that got written off always come back. People end up competing hard to get into them decades later. I mentioned Naugatuck, I mentioned Derby, Ansonia. Those markets have real momentum now. People who showed up early and bought with conviction, they made out extraordinarily well. Not because they got lucky, but because they paid attention to the fundamentals while everybody else was chasing the already shiny, obvious markets. Even though Waterbury has had exceptional growth over the last few years, it's still early in the cycle that these towns are in today. The story isn't obvious yet. There's still skepticism. You still have to explain your reasoning to people at dinner parties. And I get it. That historically is where the opportunity is real. There is great opportunity. The city has infrastructure most places its size would kill for, a historic downtown with bones worth restoring, a significant medical presence with the hospitals that are here, a college footprint with post-university and UConn, city services that come with real population density, the civic foundation of a functioning city. What's been missing is sustained investment and the confidence that brings more investment. And both of those things are slowly, steadily starting to show up. Does anybody know what they're building in the area? They are building one of the largest Amazon facilities. What is that going to do to housing prices? People who buy in Waterbury in 2026 and hold it for 5 to 7 years are going to look back at this moment very differently from people that waited to 2031. When the story is fully told and all priced out, the best time to buy something is when you still have to make a case for it. I started this video by saying people write off Waterbury, and listen, I get why. The reputation is real and it didn't come from nowhere. But one of the most consistent truths I've learned in this business is the best opportunities rarely announce themselves loudly. They're usually sitting in plain sight, being ignored by people who stopped looking carefully. Waterbury in 2026 is one of those opportunities. Not a perfect market, not a perfect city, not a turnkey city, but a place with genuine upside, real character, and a location that works, a price point that's kind of crazy for Connecticut, where accessible price points are genuinely hard to find here in any other part of the state. And I'll say this one more time because I think it's worth sitting with. The buyers who made the best decisions in Connecticut over the last decade weren't the ones chasing the towns everybody else already wanted. They were the ones willing to do the work, the ones looking past the reputation, the ones that bet on fundamentals when the crowd hasn't caught up yet. That's the Waterbury play for 2026. And it's not for everyone. 100% it's not. And that's exactly why it still makes sense. Now, before you go anywhere, if you want to know where smart buyers in Waterbury are putting their money, I made a full video breaking down the 3 sections in the city I personally would buy in. That's the video that answers the, okay, I'm interested, but where specifically question. Click this and I'll meet you over there right now.